So now, should you run out and adopt marketing automation? And my answer is not necessarily. You have to think about where your organization is, and this is where we're going to get into kind of the uniqueness of a marketing automation tool and how it can be used internally and how it's used by specific types of organizations. Because here's the thing. It definitely takes the right tools, but it also takes an artist with the skill to use them appropriately. So if you think about these three pictures, you have a pencil, you have a crayon, and you can create a Mona Lisa with all of them. But you have to know how to use the tool appropriately, and really, the average person in the hands of a paintbrush could not produce a Mona Lisa picture. And that's where top performers can help us, because they start to evaluate, or they start to help us evaluate how to train the organization with best practices that help us get to a Mona Lisa. So considerations and recommendations for a small business. I think there are 4 major considerations, and there's more, but these are the ones I really want you to think about as a small business when you're evaluating whether or not marketing automation is right for you. And that's resources, content, sales and marketing alignment, and the divestiture strategy of your technologies. So I'm going to go into these in detail. And I think the first thing is, you really have to have committed resources. It doesn't mean you need new resources. You just need them to be committed. So, a marketing automation tool does require at least some part-time effort to manage the business rules, to configure email campaigns. It's no more than you would be doing in email marketing. And furthermore, it's really empowering your organization more so. And what makes this person unique is they really need to interface with sales and marketing, and they have to be somewhat analytical so that they can hold sales and marketing accountable for performance. So they can actually say, yeah, you guys are doing a great job passing quality opportunities over to sales, and those are translating into X percentage of sales at the end of the sales cycle. And so it is really a mix of technical resources and business resources within this role. But I think the best way to think about this is, if you're doing a good job today, if your organization is doing a good job with email marketing and you're engaging on a frequent basis and you have a good cadence to how you communicate, you're going to do a great job with marketing automation, and you're going to get a lot farther than you ever could with email. If you own email and you don't really pay attention to it and you're rarely doing anything, you're going to get out of this the time and effort you put into it. So, I think the expectation for sometimes it's misaligned is, this tool is going to suddenly help me do a better job. No, you have to do it yourself, which brings me to my next subject, which is, this whole notion of I'm going to go back to that, of content and what your organization has to do to commit content. So actually, I forgot about this slide. So we asked organizations, in top-performing organizations, do you dedicate resources to digital marketing engagement? And the kind of idea here is, does it require a dedicated person? And I think the glaring opportunity here is it doesn't. You don't have to worry about hiring separate people. And this is across the board. We see it's just about half. Yes, some people have dedicated resources for it, and that's great. But you can still get incredible value, and you can still be a top performer by a part-time resources focusing their efforts on these kinds of investments. So content. You will have to commit some time and effort to mapping your content to the buying cycle. So, content is the fuel that powers marketing automation. And, it's really easy to evaluate features and functions, but you really have to have something to engage with prospects more frequently or more relevantly. And so, I think that what's important is you can repurpose content. You can use what exists today, because I think when I talk to small business and even large and mid-sized businesses, they say, we don't have time, we don't have the resources to create brand new content, and it feels very overwhelming, and so we've stagnated, and we've not taken a step forward when we know we should. And what I think is really important is take the content today and map it to the buying cycle and find a way to automate engagement in that stage of the buying cycle. You don't have to go recreate brand new content, although it will help. And eventually you want to map different content to each stage. You want that educational content at the beginning where you're getting attention of the market. And then the real salesy content that's trying to get people to commit to talking with sales towards the end of the buying cycle. But I think what's important is just that no matter what, something exists in your company today. It could be web content, it could be like your web copy, and maybe you can use that to automate some engagement, to really make a relevant interaction with someone who's out there poking around or who clicks on a pay-per-click campaign or something. I would plan on automating at least 2 lead nurturing campaigns for a small business. And the reason I say this, we oftentimes, I get this question a lot, is how much effort is this going to be? How many nurturing campaigns should I set up? And we've seen from top performers anywhere between 2 and 30 nurturing campaigns. But I think for a small business marketer, we've just seen incredible performance from small businesses in using marketing automation because they don't have the bureaucratic overhead and just the legacy systems that slow processes. So they can really get their hands dirty, look at what works, look at best practices, and just start doing it. And so the message here is it doesn't require a tremendous number of campaigns. And frankly, even if you're just configuring a couple and optimizing those over time, you're going to see incredible performance out the back end by handing sales more qualified opportunities. So targeted content drives targeted leads. That's the important takeaway here. I think there's that whole sales and marketing alignment subject that we need to talk about, and I can't tell you how many webinars I've actually done on the subject, but I can count it on 5 hands. Sales and marketing alignment is still a challenge, and it's still, traditional roles need to change. But I think that, if you think about where marketing and sales need to be playing in the sales cycle, the challenge for a lot of small businesses is you're generating leads with marketing, and you literally are throwing those over to sales. Here's a bunch of warm bodies who we've identified. They have a heartbeat. Now go figure out if there's an opportunity there. And sales is really taking ownership of legit opportunities that in the future, a year down the line, might really buy something, but they're not ready today, and it's wasting sales time. And so when you adopt a marketing automation solution, you're committing that marketing will take ownership of those leads that aren't ready to buy, and sales will take ownership of the short-term opportunities and closing those short-term opportunities. And we know from research that, out of 100% of the leads that you're generating in your organization, about 30% are garbage. They're just tire kickers. It's Darth Vader and Mickey Mouse. And somewhere between, 50% and 60% are just not ready to buy, but they're legit opportunities that your marketing department has dug up. And so, if you think about it, someone needs to take ownership of making sure that you, one, don't just ignore them because they're not short-term opportunities and they just fall through the cracks to your competitors, but two, that you're nurturing them and automating that engagement, like we said, across the buying cycle. And that's where marketing automation really has a hand in helping here. So, yeah, definitely you need to think about aligning sales, aligning marketing, and driving visibility across what marketing is doing and what sales is doing and how you can optimize between the two groups. It is not an either or. And what I like to say is you don't have a sales and marketing problem, you have a revenue problem. And your organization is here to generate revenue, to generate profit, and so you should be working together. There's really no excuse for an organization, not anymore, to have this kind of butting heads between sales and marketing and this lack of commitment for revenue. I think you need a divestiture strategy. Small businesses tend to generate really great returns, as I said, because they're quick to adopt the technology. But at the same time, we know from best practices that, change is hard, and you don't want to revert to old processes. So if you leave the old technologies in place, people still use them, and it's a waste of time and it's a waste of money. And if you plan to divest of those redundant systems, the email solution, if you're going to marketing automation, it's going to provide email for you. There's no reason you should still have an email solution. And if you're going to divest of it, you should be factoring that into licensing costs on the transaction. You should be able to say, to justify this investment, we're going to strip out this license in the past and in the future, and we're going to apply it here. And not only that, we're going to get even better performance out of it. And we have research to show or to measure what kind of return on investment you can get from marketing automation. So my final thoughts, choosing between an email marketing and a marketing automation tool is a risk-reward process. You have to think about, is the effort we're going to put in worth the return on the back end? And I think if you're willing to put in the effort, it absolutely is. And, I also think that time is not on your side. I mean, we've seen more and more top performers leveraging these tools to get at the more advanced communications, the more relevant communications, and it's changing the way everybody evaluates a technology or a service. It's changing the way everybody evaluates, a product or a service. And, I as a consumer want more personalized engagement from the companies that I interact with. And if you don't, then I just think, this company stinks. They don't know what they're doing. So you'll have to eventually start moving down this path. Top performers outperform everyone else by 2 to 3 times in revenue growth and in lead to sales conversion, and they're more likely to use these tools. So that should right there tell you, wow, there is some kind of an impact. We don't have a statistical correlation, but there is an impact. So, and I think it's about relevance. Relevance drives revenue for organizations. If you can communicate more effectively, you're going to drive revenue. the more you attempt to personalize, the greater demand for automation, and that's really critical. I mean, you can only get so far with email marketing, and you're doing it across one channel. And as you start to think about, well, prospects are going to probably hit the email and go to the website, or vice versa, end up on an email because they went to the website, and they're going to bounce back and forth, or they're going to bounce on social media channels, and maybe they're going to be on their mobile device looking us up. Thinking about all those things, it just further demands more automation, because you can't sit there and try to communicate with individuals at the right time, the right way, unless you have some automation.